Well, why don't I talk a little bit of who I am first. As she mentioned, my name is Joe Helm, and actually my lovely wife is in back. Her name is Dana in the green. And later on, when we have question and answers, or maybe even during the class, if you have a question and we maybe have a little alone time, either she or I can help you out with that. So I am a retired high school teacher. I taught for over 30 years in New Brighton at Irondale High School in the Mountains View School District. And about 2 years ago in January, I retired just because I just felt like the right time. I should say I retired from teaching. Clearly, I haven't retired from all things in life. I also work for the Minnesota Twins, and I have a few other things that I do to keep myself busy. We moved here recently about 6 months ago. My in-laws needed some help taking care of the home, and so we just lock, stock, and barrel sold our house and moved up here. And so I've been here for 6 months doing a little subbing. In fact, it was on my way to subbing one day that Bessie kind of lassoed me and said, would you be interested in doing a class? How well do you know Google? I go, well, I know a fair amount. I said, I'm probably about a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10. And maybe a little higher depending on who you ask, and maybe a little lower depending on who else you might ask. I'm looking at an audience right now that probably has a variety of skills. So I'm going to do my best to try and give you what I think would be something that will help you. But hopefully this will be an interactive thing and that you have specific questions that I can try to help you with as we go. There will be certainly things that I mentioned up here in the presentation that you know already, and that's okay. I'm just going to sometimes assume that are things that you don't, because you want to be helpful yet not condescending, and I will kind of shoot towards the middle if that's okay. All right? So anyway, based on a little presentation, what I want to share with you on the actual title of this class: search for practically anything and get organized through Google. Because I will tell you that that is my main source of organization, so I feel as if I can at least pass on to you some of my strategies that I've learned to help get me more organized and be able to search for things, all right? So, that being said, first of all, any questions at all? Because I'll be doing this a lot. And it's okay to ask questions either so far of what I said. Yeah?
I just have a tablet, and my son took me off of Google and onto Brave.
Oh. Probably will work to a certain extent. I'm not real familiar with that platform, but I'm guessing there's a lot of similarities. In general, Google infiltrates a lot of things even when you don't know they're in there. So it's possible that some of the same applications are there. So that's a great question. In that last half hour, let me take a look at what you have. Did you bring it with you?
No.
Okay. Well, we can talk about it more then.
When I didn't have it using Google, I liked the microphone.
Oh yeah, microphone is great. I use the microphone quite a bit, particularly on my phone, my telephone. And indeed, I will also tell you that 90% of my computer usage is in my pocket. I mean, I rarely sit down on a computer anymore, except for maybe to make a presentation like this or something. But for the most part, most of my searching, most of my organization is on the phone. So yeah, you still have a phone though? No. Okay. All right, well, they work too. All right, sounds good. All right, so Google, right? So basically it's two parts, right? We've got how to search for things and then how to get organized. So the first thing, of course, is this portion of searching, all right? Most of you realize that you can get to Google on your computer or maybe you have it on your device, because on your device it'll actually show up on the bottom. You can get to Google by just typing in google.com, right? And when you do google.com, you'll get this very kind of a boring screen, really. It just says Google, and it has a little place right here for you to type in your question. And then there's a few other little, what I like to say, gall-dang-its up in the top right-hand corner that you can use for different versions. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about these, particularly this little structure right here, later on. But for now, I want to talk about just your search bar. What happens when you do a search? So the first thing I'm going to do is do just that. Let's go to that screen. And when you do a search, obviously when you click on that, you can start to type in whatever you want. And then you can typically hit return, and it'll do that, all right? So when you search for anything, you do want to come up with some kind of, I mean, don't be afraid to try anything. It's okay to try a lot of different things. But in general, when you're doing a search, it is always best to try and keep it simple. If you give Google too much information, if you start to type in like, full sentences of things that you really want to find out, poor little Google's very sensitive. It starts to like get overwhelmed by all the information and starts to find words that you maybe or maybe not didn't want to search for. So always start out with one, maybe two words to really try and figure out what you want to do. And I'm going to give you some examples of this as we go. I just want to stay with the screen, okay? There is another function that you mentioned already, using your voice. If you notice on that screen, there is a microphone symbol that if when you click on it, it will give you the ability to actually say the words. And Google's pretty good. It literally can understand almost anything you're saying pretty well. Now, we don't have that enabled here, so I won't be able to illustrate that, but most of you understand that that is probably one of the easiest ways for you to say something, because some of us are all thumbs when we type things in our phone, or even when we're, I don't know, I don't love typing. I like saying things, or if I have to, I can find out strategies that are much better than just, typing it in. So the microphone function is really great, and I encourage you to use it as much as you can. You do want to speak slowly and clearly, and a lot of times it doesn't want you to use what we call inflections, meaning don't say it as a question. You want to just say it as the words that you want it to say. But again, you want to really look at what it is you're trying to find when you're going on Google. If you want to find a medical answer, try to, the best you can, use medical terms. Try not to give them a scenario of what your ailments are, but specifically give them specific ideas. Like it says here, try to use words in the site you're trying to focus on. Important that you realize that when Google's out there, it's not one specific area. It's searching the whole world's amount of websites. And you want to try and find the websites that will help you the most, rather than just try to, maybe find some other specific thing. And here's the other thing, that some people get very stressed out about having the exact right, capitalization and pronunciation and spelling. Unfortunately or fortunately, Google has a whole wide range of information that's working with. It has seen words before that were misspelled and will actually correct you maybe more than you wanted to. It's just Google trying to be helpful sometimes. And it can be frustrating because, no, that's not what I meant. But I always like to type in a word and then make sure I look to see what's actually going up on the screen, because sometimes what it's typing up there isn't that. In fact, I think one of the biggest pros to Google, and most search engine these days, is that it will a lot of times finish your typing for you. And you may have experienced that before. So let's take some of these things I've talked about and give you some examples. Anybody out there have an idea of something we maybe would want to search for? What's coming up in the next couple weeks? What would be something we could do? Be brave. Anyone? I don't know your names yet, but traffic in Ireland? Yeah. Sure, okay. Let's find out what traffic in Ireland is like. So if I was to, first of all, just type in the word traffic, notice that right away it's giving me some suggestions. Traffic map, traffic light, traffic cameras, traffic school, traffic map Minneapolis. All these are, trafficking. Ooh. So again, there's all kinds of things that it's suggesting. In fact, it might have been one of those things I wanted, and rather than go ahead and type in the rest, I say, oh, that's great. That's what I wanted. I wanted to find out what the traffic, different kind of traffic signs are, and I could just go ahead and click that, and right away, it would give me that result. Now, again, that's not what I wanted. I wanted traffic in Ireland. So, again, I don't want to belabor this, but as soon as I typed in, it started giving me suggestions. Minnesota, or maybe it wasn't even an in word, maybe it was infractions or in Spanish, right? So there's all kinds. So I always suggest let Google do some of the work for you rather than type every single word in and say, oh. And I don't always look myself, but I try to these days. So traffic in Ireland. What do we come up with traffic in Ireland? Well, looks like quite a bit. Turns out that the traffic is light in Ireland right now. Notice that these three words right here gave me more information than I could probably ever imagine. The other thing you need to know is that what you see on the screen is not nearly everything. When you scroll down, it will start to give you suggestions. And maybe it's like, oh, I never thought, oh, this is where you can really get, down what I call the wormhole. It's like, oh, well, I really wasn't wondering that, but now I am wondering. Is driving difficult in Ireland? So I could click on that, and it would give me that answer. Now, I'm going to probably say this 20 more times. Remember that Google is not the absolute, nor any site is going to be the absolute answer to any question. Okay? It is what is out there and popular in that version of reality, really. So don't necessarily assume if I do is driving difficult in Ireland and somebody tells me it's not difficult, then that's what it is, then that's not difficult. I can tell you, we were in Ireland a few years ago. There's a lot of traffic circles there. Plus they drive on a different side of the road. So for you and I, it might be kind of difficult to drive in Ireland. So this is, one interpretation from one site. So make sure that you always be aware that, yeah, it may or may not be true. And I'm going to bring that up again. So notice that there were some things I could do there that helps to do that. All right? So I chose my words carefully. I started with the basics. And of course, I didn't really worry about spelling Ireland. Although habit, I did capitalize Ireland. Didn't have to. All right. And in fact, there's even more shortcuts. Sometimes you can just look for weather wherever. We could have done traffic in Ireland. We could have done weather in Ireland. It would have been some of the same information that we'd have gotten. But you're probably not, unless you're going to fly there in the next couple days, you probably don't worry about that. Right now, you're worried maybe what's weather in Stacy. So, and in fact, anytime you type in weather, you're going to find that it's pretty good about knowing where you are. So if I just type in weather, right away, it already knows where I'm at. It knows I'm in Lindstrom. Scary, right? In general, your different devices will have the ability to either turn on or off location, but most of the time, location is already set up to be on your devices, and you have to literally go in and turn the location features off, which is good. Also can be a trouble spot because a lot of your different apps or different things won't work at all then. It's kind of a catch-22. If I turn my location features off, then Google doesn't know where I am. Well, they kind of still do, just not as much. But that also turns off a lot of things you might not be able to get access to as well. So, I've kind of come a long way on this. I used to be where I was very paranoid about how the device in my pocket is always following me, is always on, is always tracking me, is creating a profile of me, and, is that a scary thing? Yeah, it kind of is. But it's kind of the world we live in. It's pretty hard to escape. And I think there are other things you can do to make sure that you're secure besides that. But most of the features these days kind of require the location services beyond. But anyway, back to my subject. We got weather right away. But again, when you scroll down, there's all kinds of fun things you can do. All kinds of, and probably this the other thing I was going to mention. Whenever you do a search, see right here, Google wants to know location. It even asked me. But wait a minute, doesn't it already know? It clearly already knew, didn't it? So it's almost like an afterthought. Oh yeah, I already tracked your location. Are you okay with that? Is really what it's saying. But if I even block it, I'm afraid it's still going to know. It's still going to know, just not as much. One thing that's very important to look at whenever you have a site that comes up for weather, and again, I personally think weather is one of the, I told you already I'm a science teacher, right? So maybe I didn't, yeah, sorry. Yeah. And so I'm a weather geek. I'm constantly looking at the weather, and my father-in-law always wants to know, is it going to be windy today? Is it a good day for ice fishing or whatever? So I'm always on it in the first place. But the idea is that this will give you some pretty good stuff. And even right here, this wind feature, wow, right there. Look, Dad, it tells me right now that Thursday is going to be 7 miles per hour wind. I mean, what's the best day to go fishing for wind? Probably not next Thursday, okay? That kind of thing. So just by doing weather, that one word, all of a sudden you have all this information to go by. And what's the chances of precipitation? We'll graph it out for you and all kinds of wonderful things. And usually in the bottom corner of these graphics, it'll tell you what the source of this information is. This is from weather.com. I personally know that weather.com is the same company that does the Weather Channel on the cable TV. Pretty reliable source. Not the most reliable. I have a couple that I like a little better, but this one's pretty good. But you have others to choose from. As you scroll down, you're going to see that there's other types of news organizations or meteorological organizations that will tell you about weather. So here's weather.gov. That's actually from the National Weather Service. This one is from wonderground.com. Probably the one that most of the weather geeks like the best, present company included. All right? So that's just weather. A lot of times what you can do is if you're looking for a definition of something, let's say, there's something like the word, I don't know. How many of you like to use the closed captioning feature on your TV these days? I'm a big fan. I love it. I feel like people mumble more than they used to. But no, it's probably just dementia. I don't know what it is. But I feel like half the time I'm watching a show and it's like I did not understand what they just said. So I'm a big fan of doing that. But then all of a sudden it tells you everything. Like at the bottom, some music will start playing and it'll say pensive music. What does pensive even mean? I was like, so I will go in and I had to take my phone out right there. It's like, stop everything. I got to know what pensive means. So if I go into this and I look at this and I do a search on the word pensive, it will probably give me the definition right away. Especially since, oh, by the way, because I looked at it before. So, okay, here's hilarious. Take a look at this. As soon as I put in pen, I guess that's what it would, okay. And anyway, so I put in the word pensive. It's completed for me. Gave me the definition, but sometimes you don't have to do that. Otherwise, it'll further do it for you already. It'll even, if we had sound, would actually give us the pronunciation of it for me if I was to put this on here, but I don't think it's going to, is it? No. Somewhere out in the world, it said pensive, but it just didn't say it here, all right? So if I want to know the definition of a word, and if it's an obscure word, it might go straight to the definition, but sometimes it doesn't, right? For example, let's say I wanted to know what the definition of a tiger was, and I just put in tiger. If I just put in tiger, it's not going to necessarily give me the definition of a tiger. It might give me images of the tiger. It might give me where tigers are located. It might tell me where the Tiger Club in Minneapolis is. Okay? So there's all kinds of information that it maybe will give me that I really didn't want to know. But if I put in the word definition, it will definitely give me the definition of the tiger straight up. And again, this time it did. So you don't always have to, but once in a while you're going to get a kind of a term that that's not really what I wanted. I just wanted to know what the definition was. Then you can go ahead and get that quick answer. All right. Let me know if I'm going too fast or okay. All right. And again, let's see what's going on here. What else did I say here? Again, there's lots of things you can do that are much easier than you might think. I like the unit conversion thing. We're going to be going to Mexico in a couple weeks. I'm pretty excited about that. if I want to know what the conversion is for the pesos, I can simply just go into Google and say, how much is $3 in pesos? Or even if I'm there, or if in any other foreign country, you can use it to literally, you don't have to have some fancy schmancy application to do this. Google will do it for you. Just say, I got $15, how many rubles is that? Of course, I don't think anybody's going to go there anytime soon, probably. But that is as an example. All right? So, depending on what you're looking for, it comes up with things pretty quickly. All right. So, here are some other things that if you've been using Google for a while, you may know. But I was using Google for quite a while and didn't realize or use these functions. What we call the anytime and the all results. There's a slide, and I'll show it to you in a moment. There's one part of the Google page that says anytime, and another one that will say all results. And with anytime, you can, especially if you're looking for a news article. Let's say for a while, my sport is baseball. That's the sport I like the most. I was always looking for news on the latest for the baseball strike. If I was to have gone in to Google and say baseball strike, I will get information that I don't know how recent that information is. Sometimes there'll be a little date there, like it says March 10th, 2022. But a lot of times you won't. A lot of these things don't always give you dates. Now, this one is, but okay. However, let's say I want to filter that out. If I was to go into this button right here it says Tools. And if I click on those tools, these two little buggers will show up. This one that says Anytime, this one says All Results. If I click on the Anytime, you'll notice that I can find out if anything about the baseball strike has come out in the last hour, or the last 24 hours, or the past week. I can even custom range it. I'm not sure what I'm looking for. Let's say I want something between September 1st and September 8th of 2021. I don't know. I could put those dates in. I don't think I've ever had to do that because for me, I usually want the most recent information or at least somewhat. So, has there been anything on the baseball strike in the past hour? Looks like, yep, there was 25 minutes ago MLB came up with some stuff. So I have found this to be more helpful than I used to because I've discovered that it exists. It seemed like it was hidden. It's like tools. I don't know what that is. I just kind of move on. But now that I know I can go with that, it helps. So the other thing with tools is the thing that's called All Results. If I click on that, it will come up with this, which is, we say it defaults to the all results. But verbatim means I'm going to look for something that has exactly those two words in it. So maybe I should use a different example. Let's say I want to, I don't know, just go with MLB Lockout Explained. If I was to go to Tools and go to verbatim, that way I will get only those searches that all those words came up with. In other words, yeah. So it could be helpful to be verbatim because it'll give you exactly what you want, but keep in mind it does limit things. What's interesting is it's not showing this. Let me see if I can get this back. Notice that MLB Lockout Explained, let's try this again, gave me 200, so this is the other thing you may have noticed. It'll tell you how many results they come up with. There was literally, think of that for a second. You could scroll through 260,000 results before this would be done giving a result. As you went down and to the next page, the next page, the next page, next, you could literally be looking through 260,000. Whereas if I limit it to only verbatim, my number of results, see, it's not showing me that, which is unfortunate. That's why sometimes teaching live can be interesting. Typically, it tells you how many results we're down to. I would guess we streamlined it quite a bit. So if you're finding yourself overwhelmed by Google sometimes, and you're thinking, I'm getting all this information I did not want, one of the strategies you can use is to switch it to the verbatim and the anytime using the tools button. All right. So again, that's what the tools button tells you are these two different versions. Questions? Well, hopefully there was a few of you that was maybe new to, because that's relatively new to me. All right. Again, you can refine your search like crazy. You will probably notice that on your Google page, as soon as you do results, it's giving you a variety of results. But let's say I really just want to find books about my subject. Then I can click on the little button that says books, and it'll streamline only to books about the baseball strike, for example. Or if I want images, or if I want to shop for certain things. Let's say I'm looking for a really unique bookcase that I started going bookcases like, that's going to tell me the history of bookcases. I don't want the history of bookcases. I want to buy a bookcase. So I would go ahead and I would click on the shopping, and it will limit it to just things that I can buy. It'll link me to different retail outlets that provide those things. Maybe I just want to know what the news is lately about a certain subject. I don't really want to care what somebody's opinion is or what, so you can refine your search each way. So like if I look at this, and I go, let's try to find a different search, because baseball strike. What else would we maybe be interested in? Anyone?
Garden plants.
What's that?
Garden plants.
Garden plants. So, right away, again, don't forget that Google will give you suggestions right away. Let's say, yes, exactly, I want to know what garden plants were for sale. So I could have gone there where I wouldn't have had to go shopping. But let's just say I do garden plants. And I clicked on garden plants. There's going to be, well, I don't even know what this is. Is greatgardenplants.com. My guess is this is some sort of shopping as well. But then maybe I don't want to know, where I can buy them. Maybe I want information about the garden plants. So here's 10 plants every garden needs from a site called housebeautiful.com. No idea what that site is. Again, you'd have to look into it. Burpee.com. Most of you realize that that's a company that sells seeds, okay? So I highly encourage you to, before getting too click happy, and I've seen this many times with people in computers, they go, oh, that's what I want. Just give it a second, look to see what is the source. I really didn't want to, that one. I know that you can scroll down and probably find the best ones that way. But again, notice you have the ability to choose the different kinds of things. Do you want images? Sometimes they don't always come up, by the way. Notice this one. Again, pause, rewind. Like everything, Google is changing by the day. What I showed you in the original screen looks like they've already changed it. And so that's because they have images, maps, and more now. And you have to kind of hit one of these to, flights about garden plants? I have no idea what that would be. Do we want to try it? Sure. Why not? No, that's just flights. No. So now we sometimes call that clickbait. It's like, oh, that looks interesting, click it. Beware of that. All right. Again, you can limit your search in many ways. So probably what I really needed to make sure, though, is, and many of you maybe know this, I just want to make sure we're clear, that many times what you first look at is not really what you want, because Google's free, right? Yeah, not really, okay? There's this movie I watched not too long ago called The Social Dilemma that had this line that still sticks with me. It says, if the product is free, then you are probably the product. What do I mean by that? It means that they're using you as a way to help themselves understand the consumer. You are, in many ways, are selling yourself to them as a way to get to know more about the world, which is fine. I think that's kind of how the whole thing works. And keep in mind that Google stays in business and is a multi-billion-dollar corporation because they sell a lot of ads. So for example, let's say I want to take my son-in-law out to a Minnesota Wild hockey game. I would go ahead and type in Minnesota Wild hockey tickets in my search. Now careful, you may or may not get what you want. Oh my goodness, it didn't do what it was supposed to do. Come on. Usually that does something differently, okay? Let's try Twins tickets. Now, here's the other thing that's interesting. So let's go back to this. We are on a school server which filters out a lot of things, for good or bad. A lot of times, you know, kids can't, did I tell you I substitute teach here as well? So I have a chance to see student behavior, and I've been watching it for the last 20 years. Kids use their phone a lot. I don't know if you heard this. And they will be on things like their Instagram. TikTok is a big one that they like these days, and all these different diversionary sites. And schools have done a pretty good job of blocking some of those. It appears to me that that Chisago Lakes High School and the district in general is blocking ads. Because typically, most of the things you'd get on something like that will be an ad. And it'll say ad. Because when I practiced this at home, it did. Free tickets. Let's see if I get something like that. Yeah, interesting. In general, you will, okay, so what I was going to tell you is, in general, along the right side, and when you go home, try this out. Along the right-hand side, Google has an obligation to tell you whether or not that's a paid advertisement or not. And in general, those will be the first things that pop up. So, I mean, I would like to think that my example is going to work, but again, it did not. But that's okay. I always suggest scroll down first. Don't always click the first thing there. Look to see, once again, what is the website source and what is does it say ad? And scroll past the ad sometimes. Again, it might be what you want. It could be that, oh yeah, I really wanted to go to StubHub, the company that resells tickets, to get my Minnesota Wild tickets. But it might not be. So you want to definitely look to see the source. And in general, paid advertisements will not necessarily give you the exact thing you wanted. Again, this is pretty common. You get lost. It's like, oh, Mom, I clicked on this. Now, how do I get back to my original search? Remember that you always have this backward arrow thing right here. So if you looked at garden plants, like, okay, that really wasn't what I want. I'm going to go back to my original search and just click this back arrow, and that should get me back to what I was searching for before. So you can always click that back arrow because you maybe did that. The other thing that happens, and again, on computers, you should be familiar with this, there are these things at the top called tabs. My mother-in-law always got confused by these whenever we got to a different site, not realizing that all these different things are still some of the things that we've been working on before. So you may have opened a new tab by hitting something, and you maybe just have to either click off that tab or go back to another tab, or sometimes down below, if you click at the very bottom, it may have generated a whole new window. So for example, this is a different window like that. If I go down here, I can now select between two different ones that I'm at. Am I on the free tickets Google search or the MLB Lockout site? So be careful when you're navigating through things. Once in a while, you will get yourself lost. Two strategies: go back, or better yet, look to see if you activated a new tab up top, and you can always just click on those that way. So like this one here, let's say we're going to do a search for walking trails in my area. Now I did turn off, did you notice I blocked the location? It still knows where I'm at. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe here, well, it's still saying Lindstrom, Minnesota. I feel like last time I did this search, it gave me more than that, but what are you going to do? But again, notice that when I did this, if I was to say, okay, I'd be interested in going maybe to this Chisago, is that how I pronounce that? Chisago. Still, I'm new here. If I click on that and see what that gives me, I'll say, oh, there went ask me for my thing again. I'm going to allow it this time. It will give me all kinds of information. And as I go through here, I'm going to find all kinds of cool stuff that is there and kind of go through that. And then, oh, look at here. There's an actual map I can look at. I'm going to click on that map. Now, notice that map created a new tab up here. This back button won't work anymore because we're now in the world of this tab. This is a whole new, what we sometimes call mini page within a page within a page. And so you have to remember that, okay, I really don't want to look at this map anymore. Dang it, it's not letting me go back. What's going on here? That's because you generated a new tab. And typically it will generate the tab right next to the one you're at before. So if I go over to this one up here, then you should be able to go back to the thing you had. Now, careful with these tabs. They accumulate. And I've been guilty of it. I can sometimes have 12 to several dozen tabs all listed at the top, and I sometimes get a little bit grief from my spouse about that. I was like, you have too many tabs up. Because technically they do drain some of your memory. They will make your computer run a little bit slower. Give it a little bit more of a chance to crash once in a while. So you want to be careful not to let them accumulate. And if, like you say, you know, I really know I'm never going to use this map of the county park, at least not in the next little while, just hit the little X and get rid of it. Again, it's important to clean up your tabs every once in a while if you know, but they're handy to have. It's like, oh, I kind of want that. I'm going to keep that for a little while and move on, all right? Okay, so moving on, which I probably should do here. I mentioned this before. Not all sources are legitimate. Be very wary of, especially if you're looking for information about it. There's an implicit bias in almost every single website. So as soon as you've researched information on something, I highly encourage you to look at least one more. Get two sources at least. You maybe have heard of something called Wikipedia. It's an online encyclopedia company. It's a really amazing site. Teachers have this love-hate relationship with it because students will go right to Wikipedia and use it as their only source. No, it's not necessarily going to be the only source. You need to always double-check your sources. All right, so I went through a lot of information. I get the impression that you will be having access to YouTube for this. There is lots and lots of information out there. I've got a couple of videos that I've linked to this, a little PowerPoint, that go through a lot of the things I've gone through, plus much more in a different way. So if you ever want more information, YouTube is the way to go, all right? Any questions? Yeah?
I've gone to sites and cookies comes up.
Cookies?
Yes,
And they ask, like, asking, are you aware of the cookies or giving you a warning?
giving you a warning. Sometimes I can bypass that information. Other times it won't let me go any further unless I say yes.
You're right. There really isn't any way to get around that. You either have to say yes or no. If you say no, they may not allow you to go to that site at all.
Right.
If you say no, they sometimes still let you.
Yeah,
It's just one, so it's about 50-50.
But what exactly are cookies?
So cookies, think about it's a very Hansel and Gretel type analogy. Or with Hansel and Gretel it was breadcrumbs, right? They left little breadcrumbs along their way. Cookies are like the crumbs you leave behind that say you were there. So it will have on record that you were actually visiting that site. Somebody with high-tech skills could look up that information on you. If like an investigator were to try to investigate your internet usage, they would be able to go into your computer and say, okay, and they visited this site, this site, this site, because you left those cookies behind. cookie crumbs that you left behind as you chewed through the information is how the analogy is portrayed. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? It used to be that it just did it automatically. There was legislation that was put forward that said that sites that are tracing your cookies now need to let you know that they're doing it and allow for your approval. Some still don't. I think there's plenty that do it without that, but that's what a cookie is. Most of the time I say allow because I usually want to get into the site, but you don't have to, and that's certainly, you're right. And again, sometimes it'll let you do it anyway. But there is really no way to get around that. If that company decided they don't want people to go into their site without me being able to say I'm in that site, because remember, they're going to, like I said, you're the product. And so they're going to, the fact that you searched for that item or whatever, you'll likely find an ad for an item or similar off to the right-hand side because of the cookie crumbs that you left behind. So, yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
You used the word, oh, I blocked that or something, and I didn't quite.
Say that again?
Blocking. You were talking about blocking.
Yeah, so that's kind of similar to the cookie idea. At any given time, Google is tracking your information. So if I go into another Google site here, if I want to say in my area, it may come up again. Look at that, high-speed internet cable. That's the first thing that comes up. A lot of times in the upper left-hand corner, a little sign will come up that says, allow us to know what your location is. And you have two choices, allow or block. If you allow it, it will have a better idea, literally zone in GPS-wise right down to this room, that this is the source of this search. And then it will start to tailor its answers that it gives you based on your proximity. Which, again, has a lot of advantages, but sometimes it's a little scary to think that, you know, it's right there. I mean, I'm being watched. So some people feel less comfortable with that than others, and that they're allowing you to at least broaden, I think, the scale. And I don't know this for sure. I'm kind of going on a limb on this one, but I believe that it's mostly to not have it pinpointed exactly, and it might just tell you that, well, this is, you know, somebody searching for this in the city of Lindstrom, for example. I don't know that location is ever turned off completely. Because it clearly wasn't, because even when I blocked it, it still knew I was in Lindstrom. All right. So that's basically half of what we were talking about here. Remember that the other part of this class is how to get organized. So there's so many things Google can do for you to get organized, and I don't want to overwhelm you, nor do I want to take over your time. I don't even know what time it is. What time is it? Okay, so I got 15 minutes left. All right. So I do want to draw your attention to something that's on every Google page, which is called the waffle. And it's this little series of 9 dots. I've often seen other people refer to it as the Rubik's Cube. But it is a little symbol that you will find that looks like this. That's usually kind of more of a grayish color in the upper right-hand corner of your Google page. So if I go to a Google page, you'll see this symbol right here. And it seems like a rather harmless little, it's just garbage, right? No, oh my goodness, is there a lot of things in here. If you hover it over, it will actually tell you that it's Google Apps. Apps, of course, stand for applications. And if you click on it, my goodness, there is so many things that are available for you to use. And that's just a start. As I scroll down, you can see that there's many, 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 many of them that you can work on. And there's even more that you can get from what's called Google Marketplace, which is basically download new ones. So there's so many that I can't even go over even a quarter of them. But I do want to maybe go over some of the ones that you might use the most, depending on, you know, your world. I would be lost without my Google Calendar. And I'm not sure how many of you use your Google Calendar, but it has probably revolutionized my ability to keep track of what I'm doing in my world, okay? Now, the one thing you do need to know is you have to have a Gmail account or some other Google account. You don't necessarily have Gmail, but that's the main way you get a Google account is by signing up for a Gmail web address. And of course, Gmail is free. Well, is it? Okay, well, again, because we all know who the product is, but it's basically free. The other thing you have to know is that your calendar, as well as all your other things that you do now on Google, are going to be associated with that one email account. So if you and your spouse share the same email, keep in mind if you put, I have tea time at 7:30 with Roger, the wife's going to know you have tea time at 7:30 with Roger, because that's just how that works. It's once they're on the same account, you have the same calendar. I personally have two calendars, one for me and one for the shared, just because I'm not hiding anything. There's a lot of garbage that I do that it would just distract and wouldn't really need to be something that would need to be done, okay? But particularly if you have it on your phone, it's really handy because it will send you messages 10 minutes before something that you have an appointment to do comes up, and it'll remind you that, hey, that's right, I forgot I had to go to the dentist in 10 minutes type deal. And there's really some neat things that happen with this because sometimes things get automatically added to your calendar that you wouldn't never normally know how to do in the first place. For example, if I was to go to my calendar, there's several ways for me to get here. I will just pull it down to my calendar, and I think this is going to, now, I actually have a calendar based on me being a high school substitute teacher. That's what HS up in this, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, it will tell you whose calendar this is. This is the calendar for the high school subs. I don't want that one. I can come down to my calendar, this Alan Helm guy, who's actually, my name is Joe, but they call me Alan, okay. And you can see these are the kinds of things that I have going on in my world. Now I can limit it. Do I really need to know birthdays and those kinds of things? I can select those off. But, for example, I know that my dentist is at 11:30 on the 28th. At 11:20, my phone's going to go off and remind me. I can go on just further. I was going to show my other one. There's several on here that I would be able to do. And it defaults to month, but you can look at it by month, by week, by day, and literally you can start to type in things. So, see, look at that. I have the Google class that I put in here. I had to be here by 1:30. Yeah?
How do you get the calendar and the detail to the left of the calendar?
So depending on what you're doing, it's like on a phone, it doesn't necessarily do it, but these details right here.
Right, even on my laptop, because I pull up calendar and I don't get that.
That's a good question. I'd have to look at it. Typically, it defaults on mine. But we can take a look at it. Why don't we look at that? And, that's a great question. We have that last half hour for questions and answers, if that's okay?
Oh, sure.
Sure. Because I'm not sure. I typically is like that all the time to have this.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, because I don't know. Good question. So it's really quite easy to use. Let's say, for example, later on today, you can see that right here, the day that it is will be highlighted. Let's say later on today I want to do something else and I don't want to forget to do it. It's like, oh, we should go out to dinner at 5:30 and we have reservations, such and such. I'm going to probably forget that. So what I could do is click on that day, and then right there I can go ahead and put the title and time. So let's say dinner at, where do I want to go? Pizza Pub? Someday I'll get there again. And I want to go there at 5:30 tonight. If I just type in dinner at Pizza Pub 5:30 and hit save, it will already have here that I have dinner at 5:30. And at 5:20, it's going to send me a little signal either on my computer or on my phone reminding me that I have that coming up. And you can see it's very helpful for a person with a rather large schedule like mine. I start working for the Minnesota Twins next month, and I've already put in the time I need to be there and which days I'm working, so that if somebody says, hey, can you go do this on the 23rd, I can say, yes, I have nothing that I know planned on the 23rd. But if they ask me on the 26th, oh, sorry, already booked. And you can put several different things on the same day, as you can see, and Google will also remind me, what of a variety of other kind of holidays that are out there as well, so I don't have to forget when Mother's Day is. By the way, if it's something you did not put on yourself, it will not send you a reminder email. It's not like on Cinco de Mayo, it's going to remind me of Cinco de Mayo on an alarm. It's just the kinds of things that I do. I have a bunch of friends that get together every Friday morning at 7:30 for breakfast. It is kind of annoying, though, if I want to sleep in at 7:20, my phone's going to go off telling me breakfast in 10 minutes. And my girl will say, why are we doing this now still? Okay. Anyway, so that's Google Calendar.
Excuse me, so do you go into your Google, I have a Google
Yep.
account, and then click on calendar?
Correct. You would go to your little waffle
Okay.
and pull down the calendar.
Oh, okay.
Everything's under the waffle. If you have a telephone, there's actually a calendar app, a Google Calendar app that you would do separately. Yeah, but on the computer, it's actually part of your waffle. In fact, that's a great segue, because the other thing that I want to make sure that we cover when the little bit of amount of time we have left, which I tend to do, is the other really great app that I found that I love to use, and by the way, I've attached another email or another YouTube video, is Google Maps. I don't think anybody uses a Garmin anymore. Garmin's, we always had to update the software. We always use our phone now for navigation if we want to know how to get there. But some people don't want to do this thing on their phone. They don't want to have this going in their car while they're driving. It's distracting. But sometimes, this Saturday we have a birthday party to go to in Savage. We never get that far south. It's like I might as well go to Iowa for us. But we're going to be going to this birthday party, and if we do that, again, you pull it down for your waffle, and you'll be able to figure out how to get there. So let's say we have the address to there. I'll go to another Google site, go to my waffle, I'll go to Maps. Again, so Google Maps is going to be one of these options. Now again, if you don't see the one you want right away, you may have to scroll down to find it. There's the Google Maps. And when I go to Google Maps, again, it knows exactly where we are, doesn't it? Let's say I want to figure out the best way to get to Savage, Minnesota. So I type in Savage, Minnesota, and it will tell me where that is. Now, it's a long ways away, obviously. So if I want to get directions to it, I would click on this little thing that says directions. It would assume that it's where we are. Oh, I must have turned it off, huh? Oh yeah, here it says location. Does not, okay, see, there it is. Because I turned my locations off. Interesting. Sorry about that. I don't even know how to turn my location back on. I think I made it, says my location. Well, okay, let's just say Lindstrom. It'll tell me the best way to get there. The dark blue one that comes up right away is the preferred mode based on what Google thinks, based on traffic, time of day, and number of stops. It will typically be most efficient in time as well as how much gas and miles you put in. There would be other ways, and it will give you predictions. Like it would predict it would take 1 hour and 5 minutes to take this way. But let's say I really don't want to go through this. I know people who cannot stand anything called 35W. It's just, you get in the Minneapolis side of things, and I get like anxiety. I'd much rather take 35E. So if I can just click on this, it will also tell me to go that way. Yeah, it's going to take me 3 minutes longer, but that's okay with me. Or maybe I want to go like the scenic route, that whole beautiful drive along here. Yep, that's going to take me another 10 minutes, but that's okay, because I like that drive better, and it might not be as busy. I mean, interstates can freak people out sometimes. I would much rather take this road. I think it was at 61, maybe?
I think 15.
Okay, yep. And then I will still have to hop on 494 for a little while, but at least I won't have that horrible 35 thing to go through. So it gives me several different options of which way to go, and then gives me a play-by-play on the best way to go that way. And if I wanted, I could bring this along on my tablet, and it would tell me directions along the way, or I can just use it as a guide. Something else I want to share with you, because I know we're running out of time, and I think it's probably the coolest thing that my wife and I have found in Google lately, is let's zoom in on where we are here. And I'm going to not do the directions. I'm going to go back to the map. And then I'm going to show you this little thing. So I'm going to go back to the maps. And then maybe zoom out just a little bit. And then what we found is a handy little trick is if I type in gas prices and hit this, it will actually tell me how much gas is selling for in the neighboring areas. I can see that if I want the cheapest gas, I might have to go over to the BP over here near, what was that, Sacred Falls? No, that's Schaefer, yeah, in Schaefer. Or the Holiday right here is already up to, and they round to the nearest cent, so it says $4 a gallon, I'm sure it's $3.99.9. So it will tell you, oh, you know what? I think we're going to, we're going all the way over to, East Bethel today. And you might find that, oh, looks like it's cheaper there. So I'm going to wait and get gas there instead. So it's been kind of like when we're on a trip and we're going for several miles and we know we have a couple more hours to go before we run out of gas, we'll sometimes, might as well get it while we get there because it's going to be 10 cents a gallon cheaper. And especially if you're crossing state lines, you can really, there's sometimes a big dramatic difference in gas prices. So again, there's no end to things that I could be talking about today. In fact, clearly there isn't, because I think I'm almost out of time. Yeah, in fact, I'm out of time right now. What else do I have to say? Again, that waffle has so much, okay? Google has all the different programs you used to get from like Microsoft Works and Microsoft, documents and PowerPoints and things like spreadsheets. They have their own version of it. Today, I'm using what's called Google Slides. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. It's essentially the same, but for me, it's more handy because it's easier for me to, quote, share it. Today, when I turn in this PowerPoint presentation, or I should say slides presentation, I will not be giving Betsy a jump drive. Normally, that's what I've done. Everything was on a hard drive before. Now, things are not hardly ever held on hard drives or jump drives or physical entities that you hold. It's up in something called a cloud. And it's much easier for us to share these things. I can just click share, and suddenly it'll go to Betsy's email address, and she now has this PowerPoint or a document that I maybe make or whatever. So that is something that's called the Google Drive. And it's literally something within the whole business. So again, if we go back up to our waffle, you'll see that this triangle right here called Drive is going to provide a whole bunch of information. Ways that I can make documents. If I hit new, I can make a document. I can make a spreadsheet. I can make a PowerPoint. Google Forms is very popular with teachers because it's a way for students to turn in assignments or do surveys. If I want to ask you, we go on these trips with our college friends, and where are we going to go and what date works best for people? I could send out a Google form to everyone and say, okay, here's a list of dates. Which dates work best for you? What date, which place would you like to go? And a variety of things. And I can get a culmination of information from them by filling out what's called a Google form. So again, and by the way, did I mention there's more? So again, there's no limit to it. And I think if I was going to leave you with anything, it's that don't let Google overwhelm you. There is a lot. I mean, the old line that, as the island of knowledge gets bigger and bigger, so does the shore between that what we know and the unknown. So it is very scary. When you learn more, you find you don't know everything. It's humbling, to say the least. And things change. But for the most part, you don't have to be afraid of it. You go in there, you're not going to screw up the computer. The days of you screwing up the computer are pretty much done. Okay? There's the security on these things are much better than they used to be. We always were afraid of getting viruses, and there still is. And again, clickbait is still a thing. If somebody sends you strange emails, don't click on those. But for the most part, you do a Google search. Keep in mind, it is keeping track of you, so careful what you search for. But if if you have, the honest intentions, it's probably not going to be a big deal. And I think that's all I got. So, yeah.
Maybe I'll join you just a minute.
Sure.
Do you have time to take a few questions?
I'm sticking around for a half hour. Okay. So if you guys want to stick around and I can try and help people out with whatever, I can try. I don't know everything. I'm just a science teacher. Yeah. But I've been using Google for many years, and it's pretty much been in my pocket for the last many. So.
Well, great job, Joe.
Thanks.
You're so easy to listen to, so I really appreciate that.
Okay.
I think you did a great job. Say a few more things about the technology labs, and I might hijack Joe one more time and ask him if he could come to a lab with us, because we do have a lab next Tuesday right here, and if you want some practice just doing some Google searches or looking at your calendar and starting to set it up, we can help you with those kinds of things at the technology lab, and that gives you one-on-one help. We also have high schoolers that come over to the labs, and typically we have 2 high schoolers every other Tuesday, so next Tuesday is a lab here. And they're so good. They really are patient, and they're really great about helping, and they're really knowledgeable about computers and questions that you have. So I would really encourage you to come to the labs, and maybe even Joe would join us for one, because there's so much to learn about Google that, we could spend many labs working on Google, and we'll have a fun little game on Tuesday. So join us if you can. I think that's about it for the class, but I know we'll have Joe stay a little bit today if you have any questions. Okay. Yeah, thanks. Great job.
Thank you.